What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. On today's show, the Mountain West and Pac-12 should just merge, right? UNLV's bowl opponent is trying to have the worst end to a season ever. Who's more likely to win, UNLV basketball or the Raiders this weekend? And the college football playoff is here. We're wrapping up the third week of the show. I want to say thank you to all of the listeners that have reached out to offer some sort of advice or support, and the sponsorships that we have done. If you want to sponsor the show, if you want to help me out, it's TechnicallyCorrectVegas at gmail.com. Just let me know. We'll figure something out. It'll be a lot of fun. Here we go. The Pac-12 and Mountain West are a disaster. The fact that both of them are going to exist in whatever state they're going to be in next year is pretty dumb. But Adam Hill of the Review Journal had a story this week, and Adam's idea was that the Mountain West and the Pac-12 should send their conference champions to play each other in sort of a super conference champion game. And I love it because it would be a way to impress the playoff committee. It would be a way to try to increase your chances at going to the college football playoff. I think we're going to see the new Mountain West and new Pac-12 routinely below the American Athletic Conference champ in the group of six. I guess we got to call it the group of six, not the group of five. We'll see how many times I mess that up. But we're going to see the American ahead of these two conferences, I think, all the time for the playoff. It's going to be a stronger conference, and I'm guessing an 11-1 AAC team is always going to be ahead of an 11-1 Mountain West team, probably ahead of most 11-1 Pac-12 schools, though I will say Boise State does have some name power, so that might sway a little bit for a Boise State. But how much can you combat that, right? Scheduling and beating power conference teams is really the best way to do it. If you can play a team, a ranked power conference team matters too, but if you can play power conference teams and beat them, that's going to go a long way, right? If you remember the first year of the 12-team playoff, Boise State got credit for losing to Oregon. It's because they lost by 3 on the road and Oregon got the 1 seed, but playing these good teams is the best way to do it. Problem is, with 9-game conference schedules, that's going to be even tougher. And if you're a good group of 5 school, group of 6 school, I already messed it up, then teams aren't going to want to play you, right? They're going to say, well, we want our group of 6 game to be a win, not a, oh my God, we might lose to a decent team. So Adam's idea of putting your champs against each other would create a quality win for someone, right? At the end of the season, somebody is going to be the champion of the Mountain West of the Pac-12, and they're going to get one more quality win. In theory, not always, but most of the time, your conference champ is going to have at least 9 wins, if not 10 or 11. And you could try to play up the narrative that it's a play-in game for the college football playoff. That would be a way to market the game, even if it may not always be the truth. Now, one way it backfires is, to use UNLV as an example, UNLV goes undefeated. They're the Mountain West champ. They're the highest ranked power or group of 6 team going into championship weekend, and then they've got to go play a Pac-12 team that's, let's say, 9-3, and they lose that game. And so now they're not even a conference champ, or they are. I don't know what you would consider them at that point, but they don't get in because they lose that one more game against a Pac-12 team. So there's a way that it backfires, and it means the American gets their champion in instead of UNLV or something like that. But I think the real point here is that this is a very convoluted way to just combine the conferences, right? Like, if the Pac-12 and Mountain West were just one conference, it's probably the best non-power conference. At the very least, it's right there with the American. And the champion would every year, just like they had in the first year, and a slight chance this year, but the champion would have a real chance to get into the playoffs, right? And unlike a lot of conferences, it would be regional still. We're going to look back 10 to 20 years from now and just be like, that was so stupid. I cannot believe the Mountain West and Pac-12 were two different conferences. Like, how did they not consolidate into one good conference? And instead, they thought it was best to break up into two average ones. It's going to be looked back at as something that's incredibly, incredibly dumb in college sports. But here we are because Oregon State and Washington State didn't want to be in a conference with teams like Wyoming, and Boise State and San Diego State were so desperate to get out of the Mountain West that they left the Mountain West for just the new Mountain West, right? We just call it the Pac-12 now. It's incredibly dumb. Now, also in college football with UNLV and their bowl opponent, they're going to play Ohio in the Frisco Bowl next week. Ohio put their head football coach, Brian Smith, on leave on December 1st. They then fired him this past week. Now, they put him on leave. They didn't give any reason behind it. They fired him and gave a very vague, like, oh, he had actions that embarrassed the university. Well, Front Office Sports got emails from the president of Ohio University that were sent to Brian Smith's attorneys. And in those emails, basically the emails that said, hey, you're fired, these were the reasons why. Participation in extramarital affairs, including one with an undergraduate student to which you have admitted. Repeated use of alcohol in your office in violation of university policy, and a public appearance during which you smelled strongly of alcohol and were intoxicated in your demeanor. So those are the 3 bullet points, according to Front Office Sports, as to why Ohio fired their football coach, with cause, by the way. This is a, hey, you're fired and we don't have to pay any more money. Those are the 3 reasons. Now, the argument from Smith, or from his attorney, first off, he says it wasn't an extramarital affair. He and his ex-wife had finalized their divorce earlier this month, and his ex-wife has never accused him of having an affair because they had already been separated, right? Smith's argument also is that the student was not a part of the athletic department, so this wasn't a case like at Michigan where somebody got a raise because of their relationship with the head coach. And his attorney says that Ohio University doesn't have any policy that prohibits an employee from having a relationship with a student. Those all seem like really, really good points, right? Technically, he wasn't officially divorced while having whatever relationship with the student. But if the ex-wife doesn't care, why would Ohio University care, right? If they don't have a policy against a coach banging a student, why would they care about this? So it's a little confusing there. I will say one important note. The email apparently said extramarital affairs, plural. And his attorney did not address the plural part of that, just the one relationship with a student. But again, even if he had 7 affairs, if the ex-wife doesn't care, why in the world is Ohio University firing their football coach because he's sleeping around while married? That doesn't seem like why you would fire a football coach. For the drinking part, Smith's attorney said, one, that he never showed up inebriated to an event, that didn't happen. So he just straight out says that never happened. That's not reality. But he also said the drinking in office, that did happen, apparently. And his attorney says that he was toasting, the head coach was toasting to a victory with bourbon that the president's husband gave to the head coach. So the argument here is that, all right, yeah, he was drinking in the office, but the person who just fired him, your husband's the one who gave him that alcohol. He also said, the attorney also said, that there's an incident where the head coach was called into the office of an associate athletic director, and that associate athletic director gave the head coach some bourbon, and they drank together. Basically saying, yeah, this happens at your university, and he's the only one getting punished for it. I kind of like all the arguments there. I don't know if they work. I don't know if the drinking ones work because you violated policy, and just saying, hey, officer, that guy's speeding too doesn't actually work. Like, yeah, you broke it too. But his arguments make me kind of feel for him. I'm surprised that he got fired over this. Now, one last thing on some UNLV football here. Their schedule is almost complete for next year. We know 11 of the 12 games for next season, and we know where those games will be played because the Mountain West announced which games were home and road next year. So UNLV will host in Mountain West play Nevada, Wyoming, Northern Illinois, and UTEP. So they get both of the two new members at home. They will travel to Air Force, Hawaii, New Mexico, and San Jose State. The Mountain West, important note, has 9 football teams for next year. So you play everybody. It's an 8-game schedule, and you play everyone. Wild concept in college football right now to be able to play everyone in your conference. I would also say the Mountain West made sure that no one played at Hawaii and at Northern Illinois in the same season. And I'm guessing they're going to do that throughout the course of however long this conference lasts this way. So good job by the Mountain West to not make somebody go to Illinois and Hawaii in the same year. But assuming that UNLV's unknown game is an FCS team, that would be my guess. They're listing it as an unknown home game or a to be determined home game. But what that means is that UNLV this year, their home games are going to be those 4 conference games plus Cal and an FCS team, and their 2 non-conference road games will be North Texas and Akron. I think an important note to take away is that none of the games on the schedule are like guaranteed losses. Going to North Texas probably be tough. I'm pretty sure their quarterback's leaving though, right? Cal coming to Allegiant Stadium, it's a power conference team. I don't think you're looking at that and saying, well, that's clearly a win, but you could win the game. Akron's not very good, but you are on the road in Ohio, so that might be difficult as well. And then we'll see how good the Mountain West teams are. But there's not a game on there where you're like, oh yeah, UNLV's definitely going to lose that one, which is good. And I think you look at the schedule, and we'll see how good UNLV is, but 9-3 is probably the baseline. And then things go your way, you're 11-1. Things go against you, you're 7-5. That's kind of how I would view it right now. We'll see how good UNLV or how much they can improve in the offseason, or maybe how good some of these other teams are. But that's where UNLV is for now. All right. Might have a little bit of a shorter show today. Almost didn't do one. Been coughing a lot this week. It's not great. We do have a lot of college football on the show, but coming up next, it's Bischoff's Briefs. I am struggling. Cannot stop coughing. Hopefully I've done enough to edit it to where you can't tell that I'm struggling enough through this, but barely making it through. I don't know what I'm sick with, but I can't stop coughing. It's brutal. Now, in Bischoff's Briefs, the Raiders play the Houston Texans on Sunday. They're on the road in Houston. First thing to note, Houston, terrific defensively. They are number 1 in defensive efficiency by EPA per play. The Raiders' offense is 31st in offensive efficiency. The Browns are the team that's worse. So are the Raiders going to hit double digits? I honestly don't know. I am curious to see how good the Houston Texans are. Not necessarily against the Raiders, but best defense, 18th in offensive EPA per play. Can they actually win anything with that sort of setup? Interestingly, Denver and the Chargers are very similar in that regard. Defensive numbers are great. Offensive numbers are kind of middling. So we'll see how good that is. Also important note, I think, for the Raiders. Defense this year through week 10, they were 19th in EPA per play, which is not good, but was fine, right? The defense was fine. That week 10 game was the 10-7 loss to the Broncos and the wonderfully great Bo Nix. Obviously, you put up 10 points on the Raiders, you got to be good. But since week 11, the Raiders defense is 28th in EPA per play, and it sank their season rating down to 24th. I think that's a big issue with this team when we're looking at the offseason because so much focus has been on the offense. Reasonably so. It's terrible. And they've got holes everywhere. But defensively, who's good? Like, they're not good there either. So how many holes do they have? I guess throw out tight end with Brock Bowers and Max Crosby a defensive end, and then everywhere else is a hole. I mean, it's not good in most of these places. UNLV basketball opens Mountain West play on Saturday. They're hosting Fresno State. Fun fact, Fresno State is bad. Fresno State has lost 3 games in a row. One of those is to Arkansas, but the other 2 to Bakersfield and CSU in. Those teams are 316 and 212 in KenPom. Fresno State, like UNLV, another bad three-point shooting team. Not quite as bad as UNLV, but 245th in the country in three-point shooting. They are also a team that turns the ball over quite a bit. If that happens, UNLV's offense can get out in transition. That's really when they've had their best offensive games, when they've been able to get those turnovers. Now, looking at KenPom, UNLV might be in for a rough Mountain West season. UNLV is only favored in 4 Mountain West games the rest of the year. Fresno State and Air Force, which are conveniently the first 2, and then San Jose State on the road. San Jose State and a road game with Air Force, I should say, are the only 4. Now, the San Jose State road game, they're projected to lose by 1. The Fresno State road game, they're projected to lose by 1. There's a couple games where they're projected to lose by 2. So there are some coin flip games in there. But if you look back at it, Marvin Menzies' first team in UNLV went 4-14 in the Mountain West. Kevin Kruger had a team that went 7-11. There have been a couple of 8-10 teams as well for some different coaches. So UNLV has had some losing seasons in the Mountain West, but 4-16 would be incredibly bad, which is what they're shaping up to be at this point. That's not good. So we'll see how they look against Fresno State. Losing this one would be a pretty bad sign, bad omen for how the rest of the year actually goes. Jack Eichel is sick. Maybe like me, but Eichel was supposed to do a meet and greet at Prince's Street Pizza, and that meet and greet got canceled, which adds more to the belief that Eichel's going to miss more games. Golden Knights have said he has an illness. What that means, nobody knows, but Cassidy has talked about playing without Eichel, making it sound like it's going to be a multi-game absence, not just the one from last night. So what does that mean for this team and how long Eichel's out? Don't know, but obviously not good when you lose your best player. Golden Knights are back on the road, back-to-back this weekend, Calgary on Saturday, Edmonton on Sunday, and I just assume 2 more overtime games for Vegas. The WNBA players are ready to strike. The executive committee of the WNBA Players Association voted to authorize a strike, which apparently doesn't mean they're going on strike right now, but it's basically saying if we deem it necessary, we've done the voting protocol to go ahead and strike. If you have not been following, the CBA is up. The collective bargaining agreement is up between the WNBA and the WNBA Players Association. They have an extension through January 9th, but there has not been much progress made between the players and the owners. CNBC had some more reporting on this. The executive director of the Players Association told CNBC that she is frustrated with the WNBA. She also said, will there be another extension? There shouldn't be another extension. There doesn't need to be another extension. We understand their position and point of view. They understand our position and point of view, which is basically saying we've both dug our heels in and we're not giving anything up. So why should there be any extensions to the current CBA? But from that CNBC story, we got a little bit more clarity on the difference in money. So the WNBA has made an offer that would see the max salary for WNBA players jump up to $1 million, and the minimum would be $225,000. The current numbers are $60,000 minimum and $250,000 max. So those would be big increases. But according to CNBC, those numbers would be a revenue sharing percentage of about 15%, meaning the players are getting 15% of the WNBA money. The players' proposal is asking for 30% revenue sharing. So that's the gap, 15% to 30%. And using men's sports, the revenue sharing is usually around 50%. So the women aren't necessarily asking for more money. They want a higher share of the revenue. Now, that does translate to more money. But again, the big reason why is they think the WNBA is going to continue to increase in popularity and therefore revenue. And they don't want to be stuck with a locked-in salary of $1 million and $250,000 as a minimum, when that could go much higher if they're able to get a percentage revenue share rather than this locked-in number. So the WNBA is offering, their current offer would amount to 15% revenue share, but if revenues went up it would be 12%, 10%, whatever it would be, because they'd be locked into that structure. There's some wiggle room for them to increase if revenue goes up, but not keeping the percentage the exact same. So that's the difference. They seem far away. I don't know why they would suddenly not be far away. I'm guessing the players are striking sometime soon. Now, last thing in Bischoff's briefs, Jacoby Myers, former Raiders wide receiver, signed a new contract extension with the Jacksonville Jags, a 3-year deal worth $60 million, with $40 million of that guaranteed. Myers had one of the chillest trade requests of all time. He didn't want, or he did want a new contract from the Raiders. They didn't want to give him one, so he asked for a trade. The Raiders said no before the season. So Myers just played. He didn't hold out. Even when he was asked about it, he just said, I asked for a trade. They said, no, I'm going to play. Eventually, the Raiders did trade him before the trade deadline, and now he's got his new contract from the Jags. So good for Jacoby Myers. It worked out without having to hold out. But this has been Bischoff's Briefs. So Chad, a listener from Canada, gave me 5 thoughts of the day as he gave a wonderful donation to Technically Correct. His final thought: will the Raiders actually do the right thing and tank? Fortunately, Chad, the Raiders have been bad enough that even though they've been trying to win, they might get the number 1 pick in the draft. But there's 3 weeks left. The thing I'm most excited for is next weekend's game. They play the New York Giants. And assuming the Raiders lose this weekend to Houston, that game will likely be for the number 1 pick in the draft. Huge game. One of the biggest games ever played for draft position. So I'm excited for that one. And we'll see if the Raiders are bad enough to lose to Jackson Dart and the Giants and get the number 1 pick in the draft. Now, the college football playoff is here. We're getting a game today and 3 on Saturday. But Nick Saban was on the Pat McAfee show, and he is trying to kick Group of 5 teams just out of the playoff entirely. He said these guys ought to have their own playoff. Just give them the money. Each school gets $4 million for playing in the first round. Just give them $4 million and put Notre Dame in. Want to see Notre Dame and Oregon play? Hell yes, hell yes. I don't understand this desire to kick Group of 5 teams out of the playoff. That's not how playoffs work in any sport. There is no sport where teams, half the teams in this case, have zero access to the playoff. And Nick Saban wants them to go play in their own playoff? Just split college football into 2 more divisions. Like, that's what you're asking for. If you're going to have a Group of 5 playoff and they're not allowed to play in the college football playoff, you're just having 2 different divisions of football. That's what it is. So go ahead and do it, right? I think we all know that there's a chance that happens in the future anyway. Just depends on where that split is. Is it just the SEC and Big Ten splitting away, or is it all of the power conferences splitting away? But that's what Nick Saban is asking for college football to just split into 2 different divisions. That's what he's asking for. And I find that stupid, right? Like, why? Why would we do that at this point? And why are so many people upset that 10-2 Notre Dame's not in the playoff? Like, who cares? Join a conference. Why do you think James Madison is in the college football playoff? Because they won their conference. Join a conference, Notre Dame. And if you win it, you're probably going to be in the college football playoff, right? Just don't be 7-5 like Duke before you win it. So I don't understand this strong desire to just kick all the Group of 5 teams out. Who cares about seeing Notre Dame play? Who's begging for more Notre Dame football? Right? They didn't even want to play in a bowl game. They didn't even want to see more Notre Dame football. So I don't get that part of it. It seems kind of absurd that there's this much clamoring to kick James Madison and Tulane out of the college football playoff. Now, I love the college football playoff, and you're going to get some thoughts here on this. To start, my first complaint on the college football playoff is that we have 2 rematches in the first round. Oklahoma already went to Alabama and won. Now we're going to see Alabama going to Oklahoma, so it's a different venue, but we've already seen this matchup. Also, Ole Miss already beat Tulane 45-10, right, in a game that was 23-3 at halftime. Like, that game was not close. Ole Miss doesn't have Lane Kiffin anymore. I don't know how good they're going to be, but we've already seen 2 of these games. Like, why did the committee do this? I guess in theory, we should want the committee to just rank teams 1 through 12 and not care about matchups. But the NCAA tournament, the basketball tournament committee, they make sure that like conference opponents don't face off in the first round. They tell us they move teams to avoid certain matchups, mainly conference matchups. I think the football playoff committee can do something similar, right? The easiest fix would have been to flip Ole Miss and Oregon or James Madison and Tulane. That way you get Ole Miss playing James Madison and Oregon playing Tulane, and then you bump Alabama down to 10 or completely out and put Miami at 9, and then you get Oklahoma hosting Miami and Texas A&M hosting Alabama, which was an SEC matchup that did not happen this season. So we got 2 first-round matchups, and it feels like they could have fairly easily avoided this. Also, I'm annoyed as somebody who went to Ole Miss that if Ole Miss beats Tulane, their next matchup is Georgia, another rematch. They're going to play 2 teams that they already played this season in the playoff. Just kind of annoying. My second complaint, and this is kind of a pre-complaint if you didn't hear me already talking about it, if Tulane and James Madison lose in blowouts, I don't need to hear more people saying they don't belong. Last year, Clemson and SMU got smoked in their first round games. No one is saying the ACC should not be involved in the playoff, that the ACC should go and play in their own little tournament instead, right? Tennessee got smashed by Ohio State in the first round. Should the SEC not have all of these teams in? Ohio State, their first game got annihilated. Oregon got annihilated by Ohio State. Oregon was the 1 seed last year. Why the hell is Oregon back in the playoff this year? They weren't even competitive in that game, right? They proved they didn't belong. Why is Oregon allowed to play in the college football playoff again? There are going to be blowouts. It doesn't mean those teams didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. Whether it's Tulane getting blown out, whether it's Alabama getting blown out, it doesn't mean those teams didn't deserve to be in just because they lose by a lot in a game, right? So I'm already annoyed that that's going to happen. So I'm kind of hoping James Madison and Tulane at least lose by 7 and not 37. Now, what I'm excited for. Alabama and Oklahoma is the first game. Is Ty Simpson any good? Through the first half of the season, I thought Ty Simpson was the best quarterback in college football. Second half of the season, Ty Simpson was not very good. Alabama maybe shouldn't even be here, right? Can they win this game? Can they actually win a title? They might be able to. Oklahoma, by the way, pretty dominant defense, second in EPA per play, but they did give up some points to the good offenses they played. They only played 2 teams in the top 20 of SP+. Ole Miss put up 34. Tennessee put up 27. Alabama ranked 26th on offense in SP+. They put up 21 on Oklahoma. So Oklahoma had a good defensive year, but I think they're a bit overrated just because they didn't play very many great offenses. Also, Isaiah Satanga, Oklahoma's best wide receiver. I feel like every time I've watched Oklahoma play, he has a 60-yard touchdown. Alabama only held him to 26 yards. That might be what this game comes down to. Does Satanga have a big play that gives Oklahoma a touchdown or not? We're also on Saturday. We're going to get Ole Miss Tulane. How much does Lane Kiffin being gone matter, right? Ole Miss does have most of their offensive coaches back for the playoffs. Their defensive coordinator is the new head coach. It seems like that could be pretty bad as far as team not playing well because Lane Kiffin's not there, but who knows? Because also, Tulane's head coach, John Summerall, is leaving to be the Florida head coach, right? When their season ends. So how much does being the head coach of 2 schools at the same time become a disadvantage for Tulane? This is the college football game that we're going to point to and say, oh, they got to change the calendar, right? It's the biggest game in both schools' history, and both have their head coaches hired away by other schools before the playoff starts, before that game. Now, in this game, Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback, incredibly fun to watch. I think his passing production is largely because of the system that he's in, that he's throwing to open wide receivers, but his scrambling, very, very good. He has great awareness of sort of when to take off and will make big plays in big moments with his legs. We're also going to get Miami and Texas A&M. This feels like the game I'm most interested in figuring out, like, how good are these teams actually? Because they finished the year in SP plus 8 and 9. EPA per play has them 6th and 7th. right? So these are good teams, and they're right next to each other in most of these rankings. Are either one of these teams national title contenders? I honestly don't know, but I'm very excited to watch this one. Key to watch here, Texas A&M defensively, 14th best in the country at pressuring the quarterback. Miami's offense allowed the lowest pressure rate in all of college football. So who wins that battle? How much is Carson Beck under pressure in this game? And then we're going to get James Madison and Oregon. So by SP+, James Madison is the 24th best team in the country. Tulane is only 42nd. Now, I get why Tulane was ahead of James Madison. Their resume genuinely is better. James Madison's strength of schedule is one of the worst in the country. But there's a legitimate argument that James Madison is better than Tulane and that James Madison should be the 11th seed. Obviously against a very, very weak schedule, but they were top 5 in EPA per play on defense. James Madison was top 5 in yards before contact and pressure rate on defense. Their defense was very, very good, but in the Sun Belt, does any of that translate against Oregon? Now, my predictions for this, I think we're going to see Alabama go to Oklahoma and win. I think we're going to see Texas A&M beat Miami. Don't feel great about that one. And then I think Ole Miss will beat Tulane and Oregon will beat James Madison, which will give us the quarterfinals of Texas Tech and Oregon. I'll take Texas Tech in that one. I'll take Indiana over Alabama. I'll take Ohio State over A&M. And homer pick for you, I'll take Ole Miss beating Georgia. I think Ole Miss's offense, if they get that rematch with Georgia, is going to score a lot of points again. And I don't believe in Gunnar Stockton. So the semifinals, I think Texas Tech beats Indiana and Ohio State beats Ole Miss. And then Ohio State beats Texas Tech to go back to back. I still think Ohio State is the best team in the country, even after the loss in the Big Ten title game to Indiana. I still believe in Ohio State. I also think Texas Tech is really good. I think they're the best team on that side of the bracket. I think they're better than Indiana. I think their defense is going to be tremendous. Like, you look at Indiana in that win over Ohio State, tremendous performance, and they won the game. That's why they're the 1 seed. But they didn't win it because that offense was great. Indiana's offense was not good. They basically had like 2 good drives in that game. So Texas Tech's defense is right up there with Ohio State and Indiana as one of the best in college football. I don't think Indiana, if they get that matchup with Texas Tech, I don't think they're going to score that many points. So Ohio State over Texas Tech in the final. That is my prediction for the college football playoff. You're starting to hear it now. I am sick. I don't know what's going on. Got a lot of crap in my throat. Barely made it through this one, but I'm glad that I was able to do so. A little bit shorter of an episode because of that. I can't talk for more than 5 minutes without something happening over here. So appreciate all of you listening through 3 weeks. Hopefully I'll feel better on Monday. Just so you guys know, next week, I think it's 3. I'm going to do 3 shows. We're going to do Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll have one out on Christmas Eve. Not going to have a show on Christmas, and then not going to have a show on the 26th, that Friday either. So short week. Next week, you're going to get 3 episodes as long as I can talk. Who knows? I'm going to be able to talk in 3 days. But that's the plan. So appreciate you listening. Hopefully I didn't sound too sick during this show. But this has been Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff.